The first winter snow of 2003 drifted gently over the small town of Willow Creek, covering the streets in a soft white blanket. Inside a modest little house at the edge of town, a young woman named Eleanor stood by the window, her eyes fixed on the road. She had been standing there every day for the past 6 weeks, ever since the day her husband left for work and never came back. But it wasn't her husband she was truly waiting for. It was her son, their son, who had been taken from her arms without warning. That day was burned into her memory like a wound that would never heal. She had been 24, holding her baby boy, Daniel, in her arms when the social workers arrived. They spoke about temporary care and stability and the child's best interest, but all she heard was the sound of her baby crying as they carried him away. She fought, she begged, she even dropped to her knees, but nothing stopped them. Her husband, overwhelmed by debt and addiction, had signed papers without telling her. By the time Eleanor learned what had happened, Daniel was gone, placed with a foster family somewhere far away. She spent years writing letters to agencies, attending hearings, and fighting through courts that saw her as just another poor woman with nothing to offer. And through it all, she never stopped imagining the moment she would see him again. In her mind, she replayed the hug they would share, the way his small arms would wrap around her, the smell of his hair, the sound of his voice calling her Mom. That image kept her alive through the darkest days. The years crawled by. Eleanor took whatever work she could find, cleaning houses, serving coffee, stocking shelves at the grocery store, anything to pay for lawyers and filing fees. Every birthday, she baked a small cake and placed a single candle on it, whispering his name before blowing it out alone. She bought gifts she could never give him: a baseball glove, a red bicycle, a leather-bound notebook. She kept them in a box under her bed, imagining the day she would place them in his hands. By the time 20 years had passed, Eleanor was no longer the young woman who had once stood helpless at her door. Her hair had silver strands now, her hands were rough from work, and her face carried the lines of too many lonely nights. But her heart was still the same. It still beat for her son. One rainy autumn afternoon, she was stacking canned goods at the grocery store when her phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar. She almost didn't answer, but something in her gut told her she should. "Hello," she said softly. There was a pause on the other end. Then a young man's voice, uncertain, almost trembling. "Is this Eleanor Harris?" Her breath caught. "Yes. Yes, it is. My name is Daniel," the voice said. I think you're my mother." The world seemed to tilt. The hum of the store, the beeping of the register, the patter of rain against the glass. It all faded. She pressed the phone closer to her ear, afraid the connection would break and take him away again. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice shaking. "My Daniel." He was silent for a long moment. Then quietly, "Yeah, I've been looking for you." Tears blurred her vision. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions. "Where have you been? Did they treat you well? Do you remember me?" But all that came out was a choked, "Where are you?" "I'm in town," he said. I want to meet you." She didn't remember leaving work. One moment she was behind the counter, the next she was standing in front of the small cafe he had chosen. Her hands were trembling so badly she had to grip the doorframe to steady herself. And then she saw him. He was taller than she had imagined, broad-shouldered, with deep brown eyes that mirrored her own. His hair was damp from the rain, and he stood awkwardly, as if unsure what to do. For a second she just stared, afraid that if she blinked, he would vanish like a dream. And then she moved. She crossed the space between them in 3 steps and threw her arms around him. For the first time in 2 decades, she felt the weight of her son in her arms. He was no longer the baby she had lost, but the warmth, the scent of rain on his jacket, the steady beat of his heart against hers. It was him. It was Daniel. She held him so tightly it was as if she could hold back the years they had lost. At first, he stood stiffly, his arms hanging at his sides. She feared he might pull away. But then, slowly, almost shyly, his hands came up to her back and he hugged her. Not politely, not out of obligation, but fully, deeply, as if he too had been waiting all his life for this moment. They stood like that for a long time, oblivious to the people passing by, the rain on the windows, the sound of clinking cups behind the counter. In that hug, all the court papers, the sleepless nights, the unanswered letters, and the aching loneliness dissolved into nothing. She could feel the years of longing melting away, replaced by something fierce and unshakable, love. When they finally stepped back, he looked at her with eyes full of questions and unspoken pain. "I don't remember much," he said quietly. "But I always felt like someone out there was missing me." Her throat tightened. "I never stopped missing you," she whispered. "Not for a single day." They sat in the cafe for hours, trading stories. About his life with the foster family, about her battles to find him, about the little birthday cakes and the gifts in the box under her bed. She learned that he had been told she didn't want him, but something in his heart had never believed it. He had searched for her as soon as he turned 18, and after years of dead ends, he had finally found her name in an old file. When they parted that night, Daniel walked her home. At her door he hesitated, then asked, "Can I come see you again?" She smiled through her tears. "You can come every day for the rest of my life." And he did. That first hug, the one she had waited 20 years for, became the first of thousands. But no matter how many times she felt his arms around her after that, she never forgot the way it felt to finally hold her son again, and to know that love, no matter how long it is separated, can always find its way back home.